In this video, I am discussing about the basic concept of genetics. Know that all living organisms reproduce and reproduction result in the formation of offspring of the same kind. However, the resulting offspring need not and most often does not totally resemble the parent. Now I am discussing about the variation. Several characteristics may differ between individual belonging to the same species. It's called variation. Now, what is about heredity? Heredity is the mechanism of the transmission of characters, reassembles as well as differences from the paternal generation to the offspring. So, the scientific study of heredity and variation and the environmental factor responsible for this is known as genetics. Genetics comes from the Greek word geno, which means give birth. The word genetics was first suggested to describe the study of inheritance and the science of variation by prominent British scientist William Bateson. In this topic, we will discuss about the principle of Mendel, which is known as Mendel's principle. George Johann Mendel, known as father of genetics, was an Austrian monk. In 1856, he published the result of hybridization experiment titled Experiments on Plant Hybrids in a journal, the Proceeding of the Bern Society of Natural History, and postulated the principle of inheritance, which is popularly known as Mendel's law. But his work was largely ignored by scientists at that time. In 19th century, the work was independently rediscovered by three biologists: Hugo de Vedis of Holland, Karl Carstens of Germany, and Erich Tesmark of Austria. Now I am discussing about the gene. What is gene? Gene is a unit of heredity that may influence the outcome of an organism traits. Mendel chose garden pea, which is Pisum sativa, for his experiment since it has following advantage. Main advantage of Mendel's experiment: well-defined discrete characters, bisexual flowers, predominant self-fertilization, easy hybridization, easy to cultivate, and relatively short life cycle. The characteristics of an organism are described as character, which another name of character is traits. Traits studies by Mendel were clear-cut and discrete. Such clear-cut discrete characteristics are known as Mendelian character. Mendel studied 7 character or traits, and all having 2 variants, and these are the characters, name of character. This is the dominant and this is the recessive. So, stem length, the dominant character is tall and recessive character is dwarfed. Flower position, dominant is axial and recessive is terminal. Flower color or seed color, flower violet and seed coat color is gray is dominant and recessive is white. Flower color is positively correlated with seed coat color. Seed with white seed coat were produced by plants that had white flower and this with grey seed could come from plants that had violet flower. Port shape. Inflated is dominant and constricted is recessive. Port color. Green is dominant and yellow is recessive. Cotyledon color. Yellow is dominant and green is recessive. Seed form. Round and wrinkle. Round is its dominant characteristics and wrinkle is its recessive characteristic. Now, what is allele? Allele. Gene occupying corresponding positions on homologous chromosomes and controlling the same characteristics, like height of plants. Here, height of plants are either tall or dwarfed. It means controlling the same characteristics but producing different effects, which is tall or dwarfed. Now types of alleles. Wild type alleles. Prevalent alleles in a population is called wild type allele. This allele typically encode proteins that are made in the right amount and function normally. And alleles that are present at least than 1% in the populations and have been altered by mutation is called mutant allele. Such allele usually result in a reduction in the amount or function of the wild type protein and are most often inherited in a recessive fashion. Now, I am discussing about the dominant allele. Dominant allele is a variation of a gene that will produce a certain phenotype, even in the presence of other alleles. It means a dominant allele masks or hides expression of recessive allele, and it is represented by an uppercase letter. And a recessive allele is a version of a gene which must be homologous when inherited in order to be exposed when inherited in order to be expressed in the phenotype. It means a recessive allele is an allele that exerts its effect only in the homologous state, and in heterologous condition its expression is marked by a dominant allele. It represented by lower class letter. Now, what's about homologous and heterozygous? Homozygous and heterozygous. Each parent diploid has two alleles for a trait that may be homozygous or heterozygous. Homozygous indicating the possess two identical alleles for a trait. Homozygous dominant genotype possesses two dominant alleles for a trait, which is capital T, capital T. And homozygous recessive genotype possesses two recessive alleles for a trait, which is small t, small t. And what's about heterozygous? Heterozygous genotype possesses one of each allele for a particular trait, which is hybridized. One comes from homozygous dominant and one comes from homozygous recessive and make a heterozygous or hybridized. To distinguish physical appearance from the genetic constitutions, two different terms are used in genetics, that is genotype and phenotype. The genotype is defined as the genetic constitution of an individual for any particular character or trait. The genotype of an individual is usually expressed by a symbol which is small t, capital T small t, or capital T capital T. This indicates pure dwarf. This is hybridized tall, and this is the pure tall. And what's about phenotype? The phenotype is defined as the physical appearance of an individual for any particular trait. And the phenotype of an individual is dependent on its genetic constitution. In this next video, I will discuss about the Mendel law of inheritance, which is law of segregation, law of independence, and then video will come of incomplete dominance and codominance.